Hi, my name's Capri and I'm 8 years old. I will be reading to you Esther 4 through 6. Now Mordecai heard all about all that had been done. To show how upset he was, he tore his clothes and then put on rough cloth and ashes. And he went out into the city crying loudly and very sadly. But Mordecai was only as far as the king's gate, because no one was allowed to enter the gate dressed in rough cloth. The king's order had reached every area, and there was great sadness and loud crying among the Jews. They gave up eating and cried loudly. Many Jews lay down on rough cloth and ashes to show how sad they were. Esther's servant girls and eunuchs came to her and told her about Mordecai. Esther was very upset and afraid. She sent clothes for Mordecai to put on instead of the rough cloth, but he would not wear them. Then Esther called for Hathach. He was one of the king's eunuchs, chosen by the king to serve her. Esther ordered him to find out what was bothering Mordecai and why. So Hathach went to Mordecai. Mordecai was in the city gates in front of the king's gate. Then Mordecai told Hathach everything that had happened to him. And he told Hathach the amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasury for the killing of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the order to kill the Jews, which had been given in Susa. He wanted Hathach to show it to Esther and tell her about it. And Mordecai told him to order Esther to go into the king's presence. He wanted her to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Hathach went back and reported to Esther everything that Mordecai had said. Then Esther told Hathach to say to Mordecai, "All the royal officers and people of the royal areas know this. No man or woman may go to the king in the inner courtyard without being called. There is only one law about this. Anyone who enters must be put to death. But if the king holds out his golden scepter, that person may live. And I have not been called to go to the king for 30 days. And Esther's message was given to Mordecai. Then Mordecai gave orders to say to Esther, "Just because you live in the king's palace, don't you think that all of the Jews, you alone, will escape? You might keep quiet at this time. Then someone else will help and save the Jews. But you and your father's family will all die. And who knows, you may have been chosen queen for just such a time as this." Then Esther sent this answer to Mordecai. "Go and get all the Jews in Susa together. For my sake, give up eating. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night and day. I and my servant girls will also give up eating, and then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I die, I die." So Mordecai went away. He did everything Esther had told him to do. Chapter 5. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes. Then she stood in the inner courtyard of the king's palace, on his royal throne in the hall, facing the doorway. The king saw Queen Esther sitting in her courtyard. When he saw her, he was very pleased. He held out to her the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther went up to him and touched the end of the scepter. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What do you want to do? What do you want to ask me? I will give you as much as half my kingdom." Esther answered, "My king, if it pleases you, come today with Haman to a banquet. I have prepared it for you." Then the king said, Bring Haman quickly so we may do what Esther asks." So the king and Haman went to the banquet that Esther had prepared for them. As they were drinking wine, the king asked Esther, "Now, Esther, what are you asking for? I will give it to you. What is it you want? I will give you as much as half of my kingdom." Esther answered, "This is what I want and ask for. My king, I hope you are pleased with me. If it pleases you, give me what I ask for and do what I want. Come with Haman tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for you. Then I will answer your questions about what I want." Haman left the king's palace that day, happy and content. Then he saw Mordecai at the king's gate. He saw that Mordecai did not stand up nor tremble with fear before him, so Haman became very angry with Mordecai, but he controlled his anger and went home. Then Haman called his friends and Yershish, his wife, together. He told them about how wealthy he was and how many sons he had. He also told them about all the ways the king had honored him, and he told him how the king had placed him higher than his important men and his royal officers. And that's not all. Haman added, "I'm the only person Queen Esther invited to come with the king to the banquet she gave, and tomorrow also the queen has asked me to be a guest with the king. But all this does not really make me happy. I'm not happy as long as I see that Jew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate." Then Haman's wife, Yershish, and all his friends said, "Have a platform built to hang someone. Build it 75 feet high, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it, and then go to the banquet with the king and be happy." Haman liked this suggestion, so he ordered the platform to be built. Chapter 6. That same night the king could not sleep, so he gave order for the daily court record to be brought and read to him. And it was found recorded that Mordecai had warned the king about Bigtha and Teresh. These men had planned to kill the king. They were two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway. Then the king asked, What honor and reward have been given to Mordecai for this?" The king's personal servants answered, "Nothing has been done for Mordecai." The king answered, "Who is in the courtyard?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace. He had come to ask the king about hanging Mordecai on the platform he had prepared. The king's personal servant said, "Haman is standing in the courtyard." So the king said, "Bring him in." So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What should be done for a man that the king wants very much to honor?" And Haman thought to himself, "Whom would the king like to honor more than me?" So he answered the king, "This is what you could do for the man you want to very much honor. Have the servants bring a royal robe and the king himself has worn. Also, bring a horse with a royal crown on its head. The horse should be one that the king has ridden. Then, let the robe and the horse be given to one of the king's most important men. Let the servants put the robe on the man the king wants very much to honor, and then lead them on the horse through the city streets. And as they are leading him, announce, 'This is what is done for the man the king very much wants to honor.'" The king commanded Haman, Go quickly, take the robe and the horse just as you said, and do all this for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not leave out anything you have suggested." So Haman took the robe and the horse. He put the robe on Mordecai, then he led him on horseback through the city streets. Haman announced before Mordecai, "This is what is done for the man the king very much wants to honor." Then Mordecai went back to the king's gate, but Haman hurried home with his head covered. He was embarrassed and ashamed. He told his wife Zeresh and his friends everything that had happened to him. Haman's wife and the men who gave him advice said, You are starting to lose power to Mordecai. Since he is a Jew, you surely cannot win against him. You will surely be ruined." While they were still talking, the king's eunuchs came to Haman's house. They made Haman hurry to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Thank you for reading with me. Have a nice day.
Hi, my friends, and welcome to Fear into Faith, Global Bible Revival, where we're on a mission to get 1 million people to read the Word of God cover to cover in a year. I'm your host, Summer Day, and with me in the studio is Natasha and Capri Schuerman. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, darling.
Hello, Capri, darling. Well, first question's obvious. How old are you?
8.
8 years old. We're not going to ask Mom how old she
Sounds
is.
good.
We won't do that. So excited to have you guys here. This is the first time we've done an interview with a mom and daughter. So first times are always exciting. And tell everybody where you guys are from.
Where are we from?
Washington State.
Washington State. I heard that you like to talk in accents.
Yes, I do.
Oh, we're going to talk in some accents for this interview.
Yes, we are.
So you're from Washington State?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, where do you live right now?
Texas.
Texas.
We live in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas. Okay, but I know there's a great story that goes along with how did you get from Washington to Texas, Miss Capri?
Well, we were traveling for 3 years.
3 years.
For 3 years you've been traveling. Where'd you go?
How many states have we been to? 42.
42.
And
42
many of them,
states.
many times.
Okay,
Yeah.
you guys went to 42 states in 3 years.
Mhm.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that, Natasha. How did that happen?
Yes, we were told to sell everything and follow him within 2 weeks. We didn't, but we gave everything away when we were told to and had to because many things got ruined in our makeshift trailer that we opened months after we started traveling. And it was really, God was telling us to leave Washington and to keep traveling. As you know, the country was crazy in 2020.
Yeah, when did you guys leave?
October 2020.
October 2020.
Yes.
I know someone who left August 1st, 2020. Oh, wait, that was us.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite stories about meeting Natasha. I met you on a Zoom call from a Facebook challenge. We didn't know each other. And you told that story of God told you to sell everything and leave, and you left October 2020.
Yeah.
God told us to sell everything and leave, and we left August 2020.
Yes. And our goal was Tennessee, actually. But we got there. Yeah.
Stop it.
I know yours was too. We got there and it was brown. From Washington to Tennessee, everything was brown. It was winter. And we're like, this isn't home. This isn't it. But our actual goal was to get to Maine for 2 years, which I hear that was your goal too. I'm like,
Did you
what?
ever get to Maine?
We never did. We were 10 minutes from Maine and we had to have an emergency. And so we sped down to Florida. We had
So we traveled in a 40-foot fifth wheel.
Yes.
A truck and a fifth wheel. What did you guys travel in?
little mini red.
Putt-putt.
A mini red. What is
Mini red van.
Yeah.
We call it our mini red putt-putt.
Yeah.
So you guys are like extreme. You traveled in a minivan,
Yeah.
and then where would you stay?
We would rent Airbnbs. However, we didn't know where we were going to go. We had our set requirement, and then whenever it would pop up, that's when we would go. So I remember packing up, crying, God, are you going to show up again? Of course he's going to. It was 12 o'clock at night, and we found the Airbnb that we were going to leave at 8 o'clock the next day and get to, which was states away.
Oh, we should probably clarify a we. Who have you been traveling with, Capri?
Who do we travel with? Who's our caravan?
Who else
Daddy?
is in your family? Daddy and who else?
Her, of course.
Yep, there's 2 more.
Roman and Oliver.
Robin and Oliver are who?
My younger brothers.
And how old are they?
6 and 3.
6 and 3, and you're 8, traveling for 3 years. You homeschool?
Yes. Well, we call it road school.
Road school.
At the time, I didn't know exactly how to homeschool. I wasn't planning to homeschool. And so we would just go to libraries. So we're members to over 25 libraries around the U.S.
Remember, I had 25 libraries.
Yep. And that's how we
That could be a record. I don't know. You got to look into that.
Yeah. All the records.
So fun. I love it. You guys have such a crazy story. Do you have a favorite place that you traveled to that you remember? Natasha, what about you?
Yeah, I think one of the most surprising places was up through New Hampshire and through what's by New York, Vermont, and with all the maple syrup. And I loved it because we didn't know it, but at the time we had booked, and it was the changing of the season colors. Wow. So going through all of that, it was like the goodbye of Washington, but hello, East Coast.
Yeah.
And that was such a gift because people would book and they were paying hundreds per hotels, and we had booked it weeks prior and we had no idea. So it was no different to us. So we were on the river next to all the fall colors with maple syrup, and the Airbnbs and hotels were just extravagant. There was like home cooked chefs, and
we never made it there.
Over the Smoky Mountains. Let's go together.
I love it. We didn't talk about how, so we left August, you left October, traveling for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we're both in Fort Worth now, which is crazy because when I met you, you thought I was a crazy woman. Because when I found out you guys were traveling, I kind of half joked and I said, your daughter's amazing. It'd be great. Maybe, maybe when the Lord lets us know and we're done traveling, we could end up living in the same town. We could live 5 minutes from each other. We could just raise our kids together.
And
now we live 5 minutes apart in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah.
And neither one of us even knew. I had already been here and felt like the Lord was calling us to be here. We thought we were going to end up in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys thought that too.
Yeah.
And here I was. I came back to Fort Worth. You guys happened to be there. I thought you were just there for a month. I ended up at your house. And you're like, no, the Lord told us to stay. And I'm like, what do you mean the Lord told me to stay? What are you talking about? Now we get to see you guys all the time.
And you have fun with the girls, don't you?
Yes.
We
Holy
love
Spirit, life is the best life. That's all I'm saying. Come on. All right. Let's ask another question. So we just had you be a reader. You got to read in the other room. You're by far the youngest. We had a 17-year-old. Now we got you 8 years old. Yeah. And I wanted to share why we picked you, right? You, as far as we know, are the youngest person so far to finish our Bible challenge. So you started when you were 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And you were like, Mom, I'm going to read this cover to cover. And I remember you told me, and I was like, well, that's so cute. Well, she'll last like 5 days. And I remember when you lasted 5 weeks, and I'm like, she's real serious about this. And then I heard a rumor that you were like, Mom, they're reading too slow. I'm like a month ahead. I can't keep up with their slow pace that we were doing of reading it cover to cover. Did you really finish the whole thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Genesis to Revelation, the whole thing.
Yep.
Amazing. 8 years old, read the entire Bible, and I heard you're doing this year as well. You started over again. You're in your year 2. Come on. Okay. Do you have a favorite book in the Bible?
Well, I like Esther, and I also like Ruth.
Yeah. Why do you like Esther?
Well, because she listened to God.
She listened to God. Yeah.
And it has a lot of fun voices that I can do.
But I have all the fun voices. Okay. I have a really important question for you. Do you think other kids should read the Bible?
Absolutely, definitely, positive.
That's a great answer. Why? Why do you think they should read the Bible?
Because it teaches you a lot about God.
Mm-hmm.
And
why is that important? It's fun? Reading the Bible is fun. Why do you think learning about God's important?
Because he can protect you. He'll protect you, and learning about him is interesting.
Learning about him is interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any parts of the Bible you didn't like?
All the parts about sacrificing, killing animals with your own hands.
All the parts about sacrificing and killing animals with your own hands.
And killing people with swords.
And killing people with swords. I kind of don't like those parts either. All right, I'm going to pause you guys really quick. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back right after this. I agree with you. I don't like those parts.
Kinky, curly, wavy, straight, no matter what texture of hair you have, your hair is uniquely you and can shine in its natural beauty. And you don't have to use harsh chemicals that hurt your hair to do it. Hair Rules has exactly what you need. Our non-toxic, nourishing blend of ingredients help you work with your unique hair texture and not against it. You've got beautiful and unique hair. It's time to start showing it. Visit ilovemytexture.com and treat your hair the way it deserves. Your choice, your hair, your rules. ilovemytexture.com.
Have you always wanted to sit at the table with high-powered CEOs and executives? It's time for you to take your seat and keep it. Join us for A Moment in the Boardroom with Sharon Botley.
There's always room at the table for everyone, so don't fear. Come and join us here at the Boardroom.
Right here on Zonder TV.
Welcome back, my friend. We're in the studio with Natasha and Capri. Capri is 8 years old, and we're sitting here talking about, was there a part of the Bible you didn't like? And what was your answer?
All the parts about killing animals with your own hands.
Yeah.
And killing people with swords and just like leaving them to die in a room.
Yeah. There's definitely some parts in the Bible that I'm like, that's more intense than any movie I've ever seen, any book I've ever read. And yeah, I was wondering, like, she's 8 years old, she's reading some of this.
Yeah.
Were you like, that's a little advancement topic there for my 8-year-old. Was there ever a time when there was concern about that? or-
Absolutely. And I would bring that to my husband, and he's an amazing head of our house. And he said, God, would you just protect her mind and let her only hear what she's supposed to hear?
Mm.
And so when we were reading about certain words of promiscuity and stuff like that, she wouldn't even hear it. She just said, oh, this is Moses' mom's name. Like, she was just, it was the cute innocence of the ways that I wasn't ready to conversate with that yet. But when it did come up, I knew inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're actually talking about this. This is happening right now. I never got talked about this. But I knew my external experience with her was calm and peace, even though inside I was like, I don't know what I'm saying and how I'm doing this. And it was almost as if God was just speaking through me.
Yeah.
And it was good. And then we moved on.
Amen.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I agree with you. I don't like those parts. And I always tell people, you want drama, you want excitement, you want the Gladiator. That movie ain't got nothing on the actual Bible. As crazy as things that you see there, the Bible's got way more crazy stuff. Okay, what's your favorite kind of parts to read? I know you like Esther, but what other favorite parts? You like reading about, Jesus walking on water or any of that stuff?
Yeah, I like to read like well-known stories like from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Like Esther's story, of course.
Yeah. Tell me your favorite story about Jesus. What do you like?
Well, I like the story where Jesus heals a woman that's like sick, and then
The one where she touches his robe?
and then when he heals the dead girl.
The little girl? Yeah, and she comes back to life?
Yeah,
Why do you like that part?
because it shows his power.
Yeah.
It shows his power. Yeah, so good. What would you say, Natasha, to parents? Because I feel like there's got to be a mom watching this, and she's like, "How did you get your kid to read the Bible? How do you steward a 7-year-old's heart to want to be in the Word?" What would you say to that mom?
It's still surreal because I didn't grow up with it at all. None of it. And so when I desired to do it because I was asked to by you, I'm like, that sounds great. Let's do it with many people.
Yeah.
She did it because I did it. And that was really it. So we would set aside the time set aside the time at nighttime right before bed when we can't think. And we would read together. And that was what kept us on track.
Did you guys read the whole thing out loud together?
No,
Okay.
no,
In our
because
heads.
I was too slow for her to read. Like every
Your
time,
mom was too slow.
Yeah,
You're reading the
and
Bible
I love
faster
it
than Mom.
because she can read just really fast in her mind, and so she would be chapters ahead, and I'm just not finishing the first chapter.
Wow.
Which was such a gift though, because I didn't know I couldn't read well when I was younger, and so it was surreal to be in there because giving her the gift of passionate reading
Yeah.
and knowing what do I need to do to get her to just love it and for her to love the Bible is a gift. So I would just say they copy you.
Yeah.
And that's really
Amen. Do you want to get your kid to read the Bible, read it yourself if they want to know what you're doing?
And we did, so when we were younger, we did this Bible study fellowship, and they would pray over the kids at babies, infants, and I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't ever know what I was going to do. And so at the place, they would teach them this is God's holy word. So I remember she was 9. Can I share this?
Yeah.
She was 9 months old, and she would have mac and cheese in her hand for dinner. And she would go, this is the Holy Bible. Do you want to touch it?
With your mac and cheese? Oh, wow.
So it wasn't only me, it was the community we were around. Also facilitated the passion and love and honor of the Bible and the word. Yeah.
And do you read other books too?
Yes.
The Bible's like the biggest, hardest book in the whole world to read. Do you read anything harder than that, or everything else seems pretty easy compared to the Bible?
Well, I guess the Bible's kind of equal to all the other books.
Got
I read.
equal? What's your other favorite book to read?
Karen Kingsbury and her son Tyler Russell. They have this chapter book series called the Baxter Children.
Baxter Family, children's series. But
There's a grown-up one and then a kid one.
Okay. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how many books have you read? If you had to guess. Like 5? 6?
Definitely not.
Definitely not 5 or 6.
I would probably read, if I read 5 or 6, I'd probably read one.
You read like 5 or 6 in a day, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If they're like little.
Yeah.
Sometimes I finish like a book that thick about 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, 1 or 2
depending on
days.
how-
You just finish a full chapter.
Depending on how big it is and how much I want to like read that story.
Yeah. Now, she's homeschooled, so I don't know if you've ever tested to see what her reading level is.
she's beyond high school.
Yeah, I was like, you're college reading level.
Yeah.
Except I do not read college books because they have
Because they're boring,
stuff
right?
that, yes, and they have stuff that I don't need to learn right now.
You don't need to. You're well read and smart and wise.
So I just make up for reading those books. I make up, instead of reading those books, I just read a bunch of other books.
Have you always loved to read?
Yes.
And why?
Because I like.
Because I like it. How did you get her to be such an avid reader? I mean, she's almost like you're like an 8-year-old savant reader, if that's a term. How'd you get her so interested in books?
When she was months old, I would stroller run to the library because I just learned how to run and I knew I wanted to be healthy and feel good. So we would get 100 books because that's all they would let you check out every single week. And so we would exchange those. And so at first she did not have toys. She only had books.
Wow.
And it wasn't because we couldn't play with toys. It was just that I had a passion for reading. I had been so deprived of being able to read when I was younger. And that's a whole story that I just desired to bring that to them. And I'm like, I don't know what you do with the baby. Put paint in their hands at months old, play with books. Like, that's what we would do. And so when they did the 1,000 kindergarten book goal, I was like, we're at 10,000. What do I do? Like, I can't go back.
There's a kindergarten book goal. I don't know what this is. I must have.
I thought it was 100.
It's 1,000. Yep. And so I mean, we'd already passed that. So it was
10,000
just
books?
fun. Yeah. Clearly, well, because we do 100 a week for the first year of her life. And then all that afterwards, we just kept going. And it's just exciting. And we do stories and Daddy teaches her accents. And so we just had fun.
Hello, dog.
Well, hello, darling.
Yes.
If you do the math, there's 52 weeks a year, so 5,200 books by the time you're like 2 years old or something like that.
Pretty much.
Right. Goodness gracious. I didn't even know there was 5,200 books.
Yes. We do get to start one and finish
Now you have
one.
2 kids. Are your other kids as interested in reading as she is?
Yes. Yes and no. Not as, but they do. I mean, they're not like, I don't want to read. Don't hand me a book. They're like, I like to read, but I also like to play.
I just love that you have led her by example. How did you get her to read? Well, I was reading the Bible with her. And so what's your plan? Is your plan to just keep doing it every year, set a world record, read the Bible like 20 times by the time you're 10?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a great idea. Okay, I asked this question to everybody. What made you say yes to this project, Natasha?
To the Bible Revival.
Yeah, to reading.
You can check out the rest of this interview right here or by going to BibleRevival.tv. And if this show has blessed you, you can help us bless others by partnering with us for as little as $20 a month and help us to expand the reach of this show. We'd also like to invite you to join our Kingdom Discipleship Program, where you have an opportunity to get on weekly Bible Zoom calls with us and people around the world to deep dive into His Word. And you can check all that out at BibleRevival.tv. I'll see you next time, my friend.